Should be working.
Redirecting. Says we're live streaming. Do you have it?
Should be. I show that it is streaming. There we go. We're up.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right.
Had some emotional problems, but we got through it.
All right. I'm going to let everyone in the room. Admit all. Hit record. Give it a second. And Stephen Berkson, the floor is yours.
I'll wait a moment for last couple people to get in here. And welcome to the March 18th meeting of the Oregon Country Fair Board of Directors. The meeting will come to order.
May 6th. May 6th.
May 6th. Oh, I'm looking at the minutes approval. I'm sorry. May 6th.
Thank you.
That disrupted the whole OHM thing. And the first item of business is announcements. If you have an announcement, please raise your hand in chat. Stephen Dyerkoff.
Yeah, so as many of you are probably aware, due to some storage issues, Vanessa had to take several years worth of the Fair Family News postings off of our .net website temporarily. I want to announce that she and I have been working together on a different website for hosting those, and as of today, that site is ready. She has one thing to do to link it to the old site or to the .net site, and you should see all those issues back again. And as an added bonus, we have a volunteer who has been scanning old printed copies of the Fair Family News going back to issue 1, and we're going to start putting those online in the next few days, so you can go back and look at our newsletter going back to 1992 very soon. So check the .net site in a few days and you should see some fun new stuff. Thanks.
Thank you. And Sue.
Sorry, I will go last.
Okay, AJ.
Yeah, I wanted to take a second to, as we're gearing up for fair this year, thank you to all of the families that allow our volunteers to spend the many hours that they are going to spend getting ready for fair. And I also wanted to take a second to thank our staff for the amount of work and hours they're putting in, trying to get our new database going and up for everybody and figuring out all the bugs. I ask that you be patient, knowing that this is new and that they are working really hard to make sure that they solve any issues that are coming up with that. And lastly, I want to give a shout out to all the students across this country that are doing the right thing, that are protesting without violence or threats, and doing what this country has needed to do for a long time, allow our youth to speak their mind and do it in a peaceful way. I hope that you will spend some time, some of those of you that have protested before, lending guidance to our young folks on how to do it the right way, so that everybody is safe. And lastly, peace, not war.
John Steinhardt.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a quick thanks to one of my crew members, Sean Lindsay, who has been working pretty tirelessly to make sure that we can take credit cards on the new system for the fair, which we have been doing for several days now, and it's working mostly pretty great, and he's been working really hard, so I just want to give him some recognition. Thanks.
Norma.
I just want to say the Spring Fling was delight, and I want to thank everybody who donated prizes, who came to the excuse me, the Spring Fling, the band that played, everybody involved who put in a whole lot of work on it. So thank you. It was great.
Thank you. And Kevin Levy?
Yeah, I just wanted to announce that the Jill Hyman Vision Fund allocations have been made. I had the honor of meeting with them while we did the process. So they have picked 5 projects out of 16 applications, and the 5 were the Whole Earth Nature School, the Northwest Youth Corps, Mackenzie River Trust, Cascadia Wildlands, and Beyond Toxics. It was a great process. They were definitely very selective in who they were giving back to for the environment. So thank you to them for all their hard work.
And Sue?
I want to let the family know that Bill Wright, the husband of the late Kathy Colson Keegan, died in hospice care on April 11th. This Saturday at Market, there will be a small memorial with a remembrance book for anyone who wants to share. This will be in booth 322, my booth, near the stage. Bill was a talented artist with a long history at Oregon Country Fair, and he was a great friend of mine. I will miss him. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. You want to take a moment of silence for that? Thank you very much. We're moving on to minutes approval. Is there any objection to approving the minutes of the March 18th the March 18th board meeting, the March 18th special session, or the April 1st board meeting? Any objection to accepting those minutes as submitted? Last call. Is there any objection to accepting the March 18th special session minutes or the April 1st board meeting minutes as submitted? Seeing none, approved by unanimous consent. On to agenda review. Is there any objection to the agenda as submitted? If so, please raise your hand in chat. Last call. Is there any objection to the agenda as submitted? Did you just raise your hand, AJ?
Yeah, I don't have an objection. I have an addition. Possibly.
That's changing it as submitted. That's fine.
Okay.
So what is it?
I would like to add that if, because we have a short agenda for old business, I would like to add, if there's time allowed, an extra 15 minutes to introduce new agenda items.
Okay. I think we can just accommodate that. Is there any objection? Seeing none, last call for agenda. Seeing none, the agenda is adopted as submitted, with the understanding that, time allowing, there will be introduction to new business. And if you are not a board member or a principal, please turn your video off. It helps with bandwidth as well. And we will go to membership comments. Are there any membership comments? Please raise your hand in chat. Coyote.
Yeah, thank you. I was interested in what was presented during President's Peace last time about the DEI training that the board will be having sometime in mid-May. And if possible, like to get more information on that, about the specifics, who's going to be conducting it, how much it's going to cost, how long it's going to be, et cetera, et cetera. So if it's possible, anything that you have to offer about that, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Can anyone briefly respond to that with where the information can be found or will be found?
The information that I can share right now is that the board will be having a 2-hour training with Cliff Jones, who also was responsible for doing the training with the coordinators, I believe. And that will be on May 15th via Zoom. It is the first edition. We're going to have 3 sessions with Cliff Jones, and this will be the initial one with him.
And will members be able to observe that or not?
No, that is for the board.
Thank you. Because I didn't mention, I will remind that member comments are for items not on the agenda. Ann Bennett Rogers.
I would like to thank Hillary, Jane Elliott, and I think Sue Barnhart for all the work, and anybody else who helped them for all the work they did around Wally's Bench area of the fair in removing over the years of removing the shiny geraniums so that we could all have beautiful wildflowers there again with no competition. Thank you.
Thank you. Last call for member comments. If you would like to make any member comments, please raise your hand in chat. Seeing none, we'll move on to staff report, executive director's report.
Thank you, Stephen. And first, I just want to start off with thanking everybody that donated, all of the artists that donated their beautiful artwork to the fundraiser of Spring Fling and Culture Jam Youth Camp. I also want to thank all of the volunteers that helped sell raffle tickets and posters at Saturday night's Spring Fling event. And to the staff for all their hard work to make it happen, and to all the people who came and bought tickets. This was our second Spring Fling since the pandemic, and I think it went really, really well. Unfortunately, the weather was a little rainy, but we're Oregonians and we had a good time anyway. On the administration front, employee work schedules will shift in mid-May in support of the event. All employees will be on site Friday through Sunday, beginning the week of May 20th. From May 20th to July 7th, Alex Zabala will be in the Eugene office Mondays and Tuesdays. He'll be off Wednesdays and Thursdays. Kirsten and Vanessa will be in the Eugene office Wednesdays and Thursdays, off Monday and Tuesday. Mark, Sunny, Norma, and Derwin will be on site Wednesdays through Sunday, off Mondays and Tuesdays. Alexis and Jeff will be on site Mondays and Tuesdays and Friday through Sunday, off Wednesday and Thursdays. Corey will be on site Mondays and Thursdays through Sunday and off Tuesdays and Wednesday. The week of July 8th through the 14th, all staff will be on site all the time. Decon, the week of July 15th through July 21st, Alex returns to the office Monday through Friday. Vanessa and Norma return to Eugene office on Tuesday for their Monday through Friday schedule. Mark, Sunny, myself will be on site for Decon, and Alexis will be on site for Decon through July 21st. And then starting July 22nd, the Eugene office staff will return to Monday through Friday schedule. We conducted our first amplified sound task force. It met on Tuesday, April 23rd. And I listed the task force members. I won't read them all. They'll be in the FFN for your reading pleasure. We will meet again tomorrow night and then hiatus until after the fair. Meetings will be open. Again, we will open the meetings again in September, and those will be open to the fair community to participate as guests. The goal is to have a 2025 guideline recommendation to the board by the December board meeting, or also November 15th, when all guideline recommendations changes are due to the office. Onto the Sunshine database, we now have over 2,400 volunteers that have created accounts. Credit card payments are up and running. We've processed well over $50,000 in payments already as of today. We received a 1.99% nonprofit credit card transaction rate, which is a significant savings from the traditional processing rate. So that will save us thousands of dollars. We've created 4 training videos, and they are available on the .NET site based on the type of access that you are granted. There's one for food, one for craft, one for crew, and one for coordinators. A big thank you to John Steinhardt and Sean Lindsay for their commitment to bringing this database into reality. A big thank you to all the volunteers that helped John and Sean design it for the various needs of their respective areas. A special thank you to Doug Quirk with booth registration, Dan Mix and Dave Wagenheim with food committee, and Adam Budd with craft inventory. As a reminder, Teen Crew applications will remain open until May 15th. So if you have a teen that wants to get on Teen Crew, get in that database and get them registered. For the event management 2024 contracts, as I may have noted, AT&T is going to install a FirstNet tower. This only provides service to AT&T FirstNet customers. It will help, and it is better than nothing. Culture Jam is scheduled for August 1st through August 8th, and applications open for students to or youth to apply on April 15th. We've had a large number of applicants this year, as well as returning youth. All rental equipment is ordered. Inventory that has been received, we've received all vehicle stickers, food vouchers, VIP passes, and worker day passes. The only thing pending is wristbands for staff, booth, and team. The site address has been updated on Google and Apple Maps to show our address as Maple Gate. We are renting a digital reader board and hoping to place it at Hope Lane on Highway 126 to direct event traffic to that gate to reduce congestion on Siddle Road. And we are awaiting ODOT's approval for this reader board. For 2024 permits, we submitted a Type 2 replacement dwelling permit for the winery house that burned down. This will take approximately 4 weeks or more. Our right-of-way permit for Subtle and Territorial has been received. Camping and outdoor assembly permits are in review by the county, and we have a meeting on May 22nd with the county to review all of those applications. The permit team is working on permitting 4 structures in Xanadu. On the site, lots of site preparation is taking place, and as everyone knows, main camp opens June 8th. The pre-fair crews are on site starting mid-May to prepare for main camp. The EAB response, we have met as a group task force several times now, and I'm going to make an emergency declaration as a preventative measure for the EAB invasion that will come. We don't know when, but it's inevitable. So the emergency declaration is for the guidelines. There will be no firewood to be brought onto site or taken from site. No live edge wood should be brought to or taken from site. Live edge wood is any wood with bark on it. I have also included the guidelines on invasive species and wood for your reminder. Excuse me. The compost slab is done. Yay. $2024 tickets. We are up 7.6% in revenue over 2023. We have sold over 2,500 3-day tickets. We will move to general admission regular price tickets on June 16th. Tickets can be purchased at the Eugene office on Mondays and Tuesday through June 25th. The guidelines are done. We're also having Oregon Public Broadcasting, Artbeat, is doing an hour-long show on us. They will be shooting pre, during, and post-fair to capture the entire cycle. We will let you know when it is scheduled, and we will try and schedule a watch party. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kirsten. Hillary?
Thanks. Before I do the treasurer's report, I want to follow up a little bit on what Ann said. Thank you for noticing. For 2 years, I and the people she mentioned, as well as Kate Bonaparte, Jax Briscato, and random other people, including Arna and Sandra Bryce from Recycling, picked once a week during the spring. We picked all the shiny geranium from the bus entrance about to the junction, and you can really see that it's made a huge, huge difference after 2 years, the years that we didn't have the fair, that the shiny geranium is very reduced and the wildflowers did great. From the junction on, there is still this invasive plant that if we don't mobilize to do it again, boy, it's sure going to help if somebody does. It really helps to save the wildflowers. And places like Alice's really needs it too. So I encourage folks to go pick some. It's well worth doing to save the wildflowers. Onto the treasurer's part, big thanks to the Spring Fling folks. You know, Norma, you just knocked it out of the ballpark again with soliciting donations and making such a nice presentation of them and organizing it all so well. I think part of the value of the raffle is the actual funds raised for Culture Jam, but also raising the awareness of Culture Jam and showing support for that program, I think is really important. Sometimes our 3-day event ends up with so much energy and juice and excitement that we don't always give all the attention to Culture Jam and recognize how important that is to our overall mission and what we're doing. The usual reminder this time of year to coordinators to please work with your budget. Look at those reports that come from Norma, ask for them if you need them. And if you are having trouble accomplishing what your crew needs to do with the budget that you have, talk to your staff person. That this staff has been so engaged and so knowledgeable and so adept at getting things done and working within the budget parameters and being organized. I can't say enough about them, and I hope every coordinator gets a chance to work with them and the rest of the management team and appreciate just the great support that they can give you. And I want to thank the staff too for that very robust main camp schedule. I think it's great that there will be people there through Decon, staff people there. And then I also want to give a big thanks to John Steinhardt and the rest of the people who are working on the database. I know it's a big uphill push, and for all of us using it, it's a push as well, even though it's not as big as it is for the people who are designing it and building it out. It will help us meet so many of our administrative goals to have all of our participants in one place. We'll be able to figure out much more precisely how many people actually are there. We'll be able to send email communications to everybody, who opts into getting them straight from the fair and not having that phone tree type dispersal of information. It's going to help with our membership management. It also helps with our cash collections. It's just such an important thing. It leads some of the things that have been coming up. So thank you very much to those folks. And it leads to an issue about SOs. When they're designing the database, there's certain assumptions that they have to make about how to organize that data and how to organize the user experience. And part of what is being done in it right now is that crew people have dependents, which your SO is your dependent, and they enter that person's name rather than the coordinator. So, I think that clearly reflects the initial board spoken description of what an SO was for, that it was for a personal support person for a crew person. That's over 30 years ago, that the last time the board revisited that. And I don't think it was put in the motions, but it was part of the conversation, even so far as your SO should be sleeping in the same tent as you and not adding to the footprint. We've come a long way from that. And I want us to start having more conversations at a membership level and particularly at a board level, not before the fair. I think we have plenty of time to talk about it. But what I think we should be defining an SO and the parameters and what we want, because right now some coordinators are needing to do workarounds for the way that they use SOs. And I think we're better off when our rules and our policies and our procedures agree with what we're actually doing, that we're not finding workarounds. So I'm not trying to force an outcome for how we're going to define SOs, but I want us to define them in a way that we understand and, just not do workarounds and try to make exceptions for everybody. So expect to hear more from me about that in the future. And thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Hillary. And are there any committee reports that are not listed on the agenda that have been submitted? Okay, hearing none. Are there any objection to accepting the committee reports that have been submitted? Last call. Is there any objection to accepting the committee reports that have been as submitted?
I was slow on the uptake on the hand.
Okay.
If there's time and it's up to you guys, I wanted to give just a very brief Emerald Ash Board Task Force update.
Is there any objection to an oral report from the Emerald Ash Borer Group? Last call. Seeing no objection, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I just, because it's relevant and it's on folks' mind, I'll be very quick. The task force completed our first phase of meetings, and we'll begin meetings again. They'll be scheduled for late summer after the fair. And it was a big lift. There was we were meeting every 3 weeks. I want everybody to please, if you get a chance, take a look at the list of members of the task force. I won't list them here, and thank them. But just to let folks know, right now we turned our focus from broad strategic response planning to priority focused planning, including an education team, a prevention team, which Kirsten just mentioned, and a data team for collecting information to help us that are going to be active going into the fair. So there's going to be continued education, prevention activities, and some data collection. There's also a fundraising team because there are grant opportunities that are coming up over the next several months. So all of the materials have been made available to the board. Once approved by the task force, they will be put on the .NET site. And I just want to thank the task force members and a lot of the community that participated in all those meetings, whereas we are well on our way to where we expected to be now to have a strategic response plan that I think is going to be effective in raising money to support our response for Emerald Ash Borer and preparation for it. Thank you to everybody who's been participating.
Thank you, John. And with that, last call. Is there any objection to accepting the written committee reports as submitted? Seeing none, the committee and work group reports are accepted by unanimous consent, and we will move on to old business. First motion, creating an equity, division, inclusion, and belonging task force. Equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging task force. Is there someone to move this?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? Arna, are you seconding? And Arna. Okay, moved by John Steinhardt, seconded by Arna. Would you like to make a short presentation, concise presentation on the motion?
Yeah, I can just say a few words, which is diversity, equity, inclusion is something that the membership has communicated that is very important to them. And I think that people think that the board has done something about this before, but we really have never adopted any policy except 16 years ago, where we adopted policy that said we should be more diverse. But that really doesn't cover the type of issues that people think we should be paying attention to. So this is to try to take that seriously and get some work done. I don't think any of us on the board are real experts in this. So we want to assemble a team of experts to give us policy recommendations that hopefully we'll be able to adopt into the future. I'm done.
Thank you. It's a reasonably long motion. Are we okay with dispensing with the reading? It is posted and available on the network. Any objection? Seeing none, waiting in case there is one. We'll go to member input. Is there any member input on this motion? Please raise your hand in chat. Hall.
Oops.
Oops, we hear you.
Yeah, you hear me. I lost my document. There we go. Good evening. I would like to speak in favor of establishing a work group focused on the issues of equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging at the Oregon Country Fair. In the first version of the motion to establish this group, there was a strong focus on the idea that we need to reevaluate our goals and philosophy surrounding this work, and I think that focus is important. I would argue at length, if there was time, that our current conflicted state is a direct result of the fact that the original 2008 charge was based on a faulty analysis of the situation and a flawed choice of goals. I'm a little concerned that the current version of the motion, with its directive to conduct a statistically accurate demographic survey and compare its results to the demographics of Lane County, is perpetuating the original flawed line of thinking. Only a few of the aspects of diversity can be captured by such a survey, and we do our community a disservice by focusing on traditional demographics. Similarly, the directive to define and use certain terminology assumes a particular vocabulary is the right vocabulary and should lead and/or limit our thinking. The words we use, the questions we ask, the things we count can predetermine our results. We will not get a better result if we make the same mistakes. I think the third directive of the motion is where we should start, trying to understand the actual status of these issues at the fair in 2024. We are a unique community with a unique relationship to these issues, and our process of doing the work should reflect that. Despite my concerns about some of the specifics, I think this motion is a step in the right direction. I see that there's a section about the ability for the work group to request changes in the list of tasks. Given that flexibility, I hope you will pass this motion. I look forward to participating in this group, whether as an appointed member or an attendee. Thank you.
Thank you, Hall. Is there any other member input on this motion? If there is, please raise your hand in chat. Ann Bennett Rogers.
I am concerned because cultural appropriation was moved from the earlier draft of this. Cultural appropriation is a form of institutionalized racism. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Any other member input? Last call for member input.
You skipped LT.
Oh, I see him now. LT.
Thanks. I do hope you pass this motion. I do think it's time to get some movement on this issue. I don't have substantive criticisms. I am similar to the board as John Steinhardt described in not being an expert on this topic. But I have only one concern, and not surprisingly, it's a procedural one relating to the brief paragraph that starts: the president, vice president, and immediate prior president will handle the call out for letters of intent and review the letters of intent. My concern, if I read it as it's written, is that a quarter, 25% of the board, consisting of those three individuals named, will be the only ones who review letters of intent. That the board as a whole, the remaining 75%, will not receive the letters, but only a list along with the 25%'s opinion regarding their qualifications and that 25%'s recommendation as to who should and shouldn't be approved by the board. It's not, if that's the way it's intended, then I'm very concerned about that, both specifically to this motion and in general as a precedent. I'm not aware of any time in the history of the board's formulation of committees or task force in which a small group has been given that much power over the composition of the group. I don't see how it's necessary. I don't think it's advisable, and I think it sets a dreadful precedent for future procedures. I'd like to see that removed, or at minimum, I don't see any reason why those three individuals can't organize a call out and encourage people to send in letters of intent. But I strongly encourage the entire board to exercise the authority that the membership has vested in you equally to review those letters and to make an independent decision about the composition of the task force, rather than delegating control of that decision to a small minority of you. That's my concern, and that's all I got.
Thank you, LT. Last call for member input on this motion. Seeing none, we'll go to board discussion. Is there any board discussion on this motion? John Steinhardt.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to both of those comments real quickly. We removed cultural appropriation because it's a big issue that we thought that it needed separate attention, and there is still a plan to look at making a separate cultural appropriation task force to look at that particular issue. As far as LT is concerned, I think you're taking it. I think he's taking an extreme reading of the motion. The group of three is going to handle the call out and basically doing the first review of the applicants. The board is going to get to vote on all the applicants. They're not being decided by those three. I fully expect they would share the letters of intent with all of us to keep us informed about what we're voting on. Thanks.
Thank you. Arna.
I'm muted. Also, in response to LT, that vetting group is only to making recommendations to the board. The board will have the final approval of who's going on into this work group. We don't have the final approval of that. So we'll be making recommendations. If the board doesn't like them, that's, we don't have the final decision making. It's not three people making the final decisions. So it's the board making the decisions.
Thank you. Any other board discussion? Lisa.
Okay, hello everyone. I am pleased to see the board moving forward with this work, especially given the challenges we've faced over the past 2 years. And I want to thank Teresa for incorporating many of my suggestions into her revision of the original motion. However, there are still aspects of the motion as written that concern me and prevent me from offering my support. In particular, the provision that only 3 out of 12 directors will review the letters of intent troubles me. As a director, I believe it is not only my duty to make well-informed decisions, but also my right to access all relevant information. I understand that some directors may not wish to be involved in the review of letters of intent, and they argue that they trust these 3 directors to make good recommendations to the rest of the board. However, for me, it's not a matter of trust. Rather, it's my duty to the organization to conduct thorough due diligence. That's what I was elected to do. So therefore, I respectfully propose that all 12 directors be involved in the review of the letters of interest for the board-appointed work group. This approach would ensure a fair and comprehensive selection process in line with principles of transparency and inclusivity. So I would like to make a motion to amend by striking the paragraph that says the president, vice president, and immediate prior president will handle the call out for letters of intent and the review of the letters of intent. They will then forward the complete list of applicants, identifying those that meet the requirements, along with the recommendations for the work group for the board to approve. And I'd like to insert interested parties will submit letters of interest to the board of directors, and the board will review the letters of interest and appoint members to the work group by taking votes in an open board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Is there, do you have that amendment down, Kirsten? Do we need to?
Lisa, could you copy and paste that into the chat box, please? Thank you.
And I would second that.
And I was just going to ask for a second. So moved by Lisa Parker and seconded by Paxton. The motion on the floor is to amend the paragraph regarding the vetting of the solicitation for and vetting of applicants for the committee. Is there any member input on this amendment? Any member input, please raise your hand in chat. LT, you have how much time left? 30 seconds, I think.
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
I'll try to be quick. I probably wasn't explicit enough earlier. My concern was that unless it's explicit in the motion that all board members have access to all the material, including all the letters of intent, then there's really nothing to assure that would happen. And so it's, again, my preference is for explicit procedures that have to be followed. So I encourage you to support the amendment.
Any other member input? Anne?
I encourage the board to support the amendment. Thank you.
Any other member input? Last call for member input. Seeing none, we'll go to board discussion. Paxton?
That paragraph really concerned me a lot when I initially read the motion. I'd like to support this, and I prefer it with the amended motion. Thank you.
Sandra?
Yeah, I don't think there was any intent to not pass along the letters of intent. And I think that we can easily fix the original motion by including the line review letters of intent, forward the complete list of applicants, including letters of intent. I can't support the amended piece here. I think it's really difficult to do something in a group of 12, and we have a subcommittee that can review the letters, make sure all the information is there, arrange it for us, and then give us their recommendations, and we will have all the original material to review as well, and then take action on it. It is a board decision to make, and that is clearly intended in the motion here. So I do not think that the amendment is necessary or even appropriate to use. So thank you.
Thank you. AJ?
I would say much of what Sandra just said, and I would add that again, we started this board session with folks mentioning that they would like a higher level of trust in one another and working together. And here you have not only the president that is voted on by this board, but the vice president, as well as the president that served before, who are doing some heavy lifting for the board in this motion, this original motion. And I'm just concerned that the continued level of distrust in your voted in members for the board based on politics, I'm troubled by that.
Point of privilege. Point of privilege.
Well, let's please not assign motives to what's being done. There's a simple, objective, factual request for a language change. So if you disagree with the language change, that's fine, but let's not ascribe motives to it, please.
I want to add that there is an implication of that done in the political language that is being used here. And so we can act as if this is just a simple, change of information. We can act as if we all want to agree to act as if that's not the elephant in the room is not there. We can do that.
AJ, so it's really, please. So it is out of order. What was offered to the board, the plain language of what was offered to the board, which was to change the language and make it so that everyone on the board is involved in the vetting process. You can disagree with it. You can have feelings about what those motives are, but there's been no vitriolic or pointed language used.
There was an explanation given to why. And I want to, if we're all looking with the lens that we're supposed to be looking with, we can look behind the door. And I just happen to have a really fairly good lens when it comes to DEI because of my experience, not only lived experience, but my work experience that says this goes a little bit beyond that. So I'm just expressing myself like other people expressed it. It wasn't just a change in the motion that was presented. There was an explanation that I felt was concerning, and I'm expressing that. So thank you.
Okay. I think, you know, we're not trying to suppress anything, but we're just trying to maintain the civility. So we're just trying to suss out, you know, whether or not there was something pointed to respond to. It's, you know, we're doing our best.
I know I'm a board member and I'm allowed to speak my mind without being aggressive towards folks and have an opinion. And I like the privilege of being able to do that like others. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, okay. Is there any other, so I see, I got Kevin leaving next.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. So my curiosity, I guess, when the letters of intent come in, they would just go right to the committee and not be submitted to the board. I imagine that a lot of letters of intent might end up coming to the board anyways. I think that's probably a question I have as far as like what the process looks like for the letters coming in. As well, it seems like the whole list is going to come to us anyways, and I think we can easily request these letters of intent. I don't feel like there's going to be this weird secret squirrel kind of thing going on, but I'd like to err to trust. I do think this is still a good motion, and I'm glad that we are moving forward to make some things happen. And I appreciate the flexibility of the document as well. And so definitely curious how the rest of the conversation goes. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, we are addressing the change in language. This is the amendment we are discussing now. John Steinhardt.
Yeah, I don't support the amendment. I do want to say, because I know I brought this up at the last board meeting, and I think many other board meetings, that this motion has been available for a long time, and it's certainly been distributed to my fellow board members in their board packets a while ago. So having this show up at the 11th hour when the motion is on.
Point of privilege.
Inappropriate.
True. I have given input. Please don't say that I'm waiting till the 11th hour, because that's not true.
And I am perfectly happy to trust the group of three to give us the information that we need. One of the reasons that we drafted the motion this way was so that we could actually make progress. As you've probably seen from watching board meetings, getting 12 people to agree on anything is pretty difficult. And I think having it filtered up front makes our job a whole lot easier. So I don't oppose I oppose the amendment. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Teresa Vaughn.
I don't really have a problem with the amendment. I also don't have a problem with making it more explicit in the original language that everyone will have access to the letters of intent. I would like to comment that as we work towards being more trusting of each other, that we aren't there yet. And so asking for transparency here is understandable to me. And I know that the group of people that made this, there was no intent to have this be a secret little group. It was just an efficiency thing. But that doesn't, I understand that we aren't yet at the place where we have enough trust, and explicit language that addresses those things is important. And that's how you build trust. And we don't have it, obviously, all the way there. So I prefer the original language. I prefer the efficiency of a smaller group of people giving me all the information, but having had conversations and giving me recommendations. But I'm not really making very useful comments right now, so I'm going to shut up. Okay.
I would like to make clear, because a couple of people have mentioned, if anyone wants to move to amend the amendment to be something along the lines of all the original material will be distributed, that would be in order. John Alexander.
So we're commenting on the amendment right now. I'm in support
Amendment
of the
as
amendment.
stands.
I'm in support of the amendment because of this discussion. I'm support of the amendment because we're getting some member feedback. I'm in support of the amendment because I think this kind of work and decisions like this, even though this will be a board decision in the first place, takes as much input and as many diverse perspectives as possible on this. So if it's a little bit more work on us to do it, that's okay. This is hard work. And we need to do it as inclusively as possible. So I do support this amendment.
Thank you. AJ, I'm going to go to Arna first, since she has not spoken on this amendment.
I don't support this amendment. I am hoping for a lot of applicants. We did, Tom, AJ, and I wrote up an announcement of this and had applications open until July 27th. Hoping to get a lot of applicants, wanting to keep it open through the fair so people go talk about it and hopefully apply. Because we want a wide range of applicants. I do not want to go through a lot of applicants with 12 people. I don't think that's an efficient or a good way to do it. And I think it will be very difficult for the board to come up with a group to put onto this new work group. I have no problem with sharing the letters of interest that will with the whole board. You know, I always kind of assumed that would happen. But I think that we're best served as a board with recommendations from a smaller group. If the board doesn't like them, you know, we go back to the larger pool of applicants. And I don't see that as a problem. There's no wish to be working in secret. This is actually going to be quite a bit of work for the three of us. And just to be going through and vetting everybody for qualifications. And, you know, I guess I don't really see why there's a large problem here with us just coming up with recommendations, we, you know, as a subcommittee. So I am not in support of this amendment.
Thank you. AJ.
Yeah. So I am going to first apologize to everyone that's here tonight for what my emotional response to this amended motion. If I've had a few minutes to take the emotion out of it, and I want to express that emotion came from a place of working really hard to get this board the necessary training that it needs to deal with such a big issue, and also from the hope that the little progress that we have made as a whole board to getting to this point will continue to improve. My emotion came from a place of seeing us slide back into, or in feeling like we're sliding back into that period of time where decisions and trust in each other is not there. And so we make things more complicated than they should be. And here is a situation where this original motion, there was a lot of thoughtfulness put into it. The board as a whole all had input on it and been working on this for a long time. There were people with competing feelings about things, and the motion was adjusted and adjusted and adjusted. And now we find ourselves here, and I have to agree with Mr. Steinhardt, we find ourselves here, and yet we're having a technical, what I perceive as a technical issue that is not really an issue. And so there was my frustration. So it wasn't at anybody. It is that we need to do better. And I'm hoping these trainings, along with the progress that I hope we make with this motion, that we will do better. But we can't keep functioning with this. I'm refusing for us to go backwards. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. And I hope my fellow board members will understand and really advocate for this original motion and understand and be honest about the work that went into it for everybody, not just the makers of the motion. So, yeah.
Thank you. Teresa Vaughn.
So I would, I don't know the language you said one could do, but I would like to propose to be more explicit and, okay, where is?
Would you like some help with an amendment? I think I know.
I got it there. Just put it in the chat. My whole screen went away. That was right in this beautiful moment. So just added the sentence, the letters of intent will be forwarded to the entire board. In between, they will then forward the complete list of applicants, identifying those that meet the requirements. So it's written in the chat right now. So adding the letters of intent will be forwarded to the entire board, and maybe we could write all the letters of intent. Maybe that will be better for people.
Point of order. Is this a amendment to the amendment, or
That's it. That is what it is. So hold on just a sec. So I'm just reading the amendment, making sure we're. So
She's amending the original motion. We have to vote.
If everyone could hold, please. 4-2. Okay. So all the information before the board. So are you satisfied with that language, Teresa?
I added the word all, and I did
Okay.
put it in there.
Yep. Okay, so you're moving to amend the amendment with that language, correct?
If that's the proper.
That would be the proper process.
Yes,
yeah.
I am.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Teresa Vaughn and seconded by Kevin Levy to change the amendment. I will summarize effectively the original language and including an assurance that all of the original material, particularly the letters of intent, will be forwarded to the entire board. Is that a fair summary, Teresa?
Yes.
Point of clarification. So this is replacing all of Lisa's language with Teresa's language?
That's affirmative.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Is there any member input on this? Member input first. Last call for member input on the amendment to the amendment. Okay, seeing none, we're going to go back to discuss this amendment. And I will ask the people who were speaking to the original amendment. John Alexander, do you want to take a turn now?
Yeah. Yeah, I hope we don't slip back into old patterns, but we're emotionally charged here. And here we go. And let's try to bring it back down a little bit. I think that this is a demonstration of why I don't think that the whole board needs to be involved in the committee, but I think that I'm not sure whether the language of Lisa's motion opens it up for more people to be involved if they choose to be involved. And so I think that if I'm reading the original motion correctly, it provides the option for additional people to be in there, so it isn't just the 3 people that have been identified in this. I think it's important and it's okay for us to be able to discuss motions, to listen to member input, and to, if we need to amend motions, that's great. It's going to be really wonderful later. We'll talk about it when we get to discuss the new business and not get in this situation. But I think that we need to be very careful. Yes, we put a lot of work into this, and yes, we read this, but if we're going to allow for member input and we're going to have discussion on motions at a public meeting, which this has not really been discussed at a public meeting, then we should be able to consider the motion, revisit the motion, amend the motion, or put it off for another bit of time if it's not just right, especially one that's as important, as opposed to I want to be careful to use the right language, but to be criticized for not participating in the process of building motions. Things come up. That's why we have member input. So it's okay for us to think about and revisit motions in public meetings. And the more we can do this before old business comes along, and thank you for AJ for changing the agenda to make that happen on the next ones, the better. But I want to be very careful not to make it so if there's member input and then I want to change a motion, that I'm not allowed to do that because we've all worked on the motion together. So I'm still in, I don't think that Lisa's motion is saying we all have to be on the committee. It's just giving the option for more board members to be deeply involved in the vetting of the applications. And I don't think that that is going to slow us down or be a problem. And if it does slow us down, maybe we need to slow down.
Okay. So I do believe, I just want to make sure the motion on the floor is clear here, and I'm trying to keep track of names, but I believe Lisa's motion said that all 12 board members would be involved, and the amendment to her amendment is to say that all the information will be forwarded by the original 3 people. Is there any substantive disagreement to that?
You mean the reading of that?
The amendment and what is being amended. So Lisa's amendment, as I recall it, and I'd have to scroll up and I don't want to lose my place of chatter, was that all 12 people would receive all the information and be involved in the vetting. And Teresa Vaughn's amendment is to go back to the original language, but say that all the information will be provided to all the board members with the same 3 people vetting. That, which is the question on the floor. So.
Right.
Yeah, the board will then review the letters, which means it's a board process as opposed to individual. So now, hang on, because I got to catch up here. Jonathan Pincus said that he was unable to get into the chat and wanted to do a member comment. Is there any objection to allowing him to speak now?
I object.
Okay. Is there any other objection? Any further objection? Do we need to go to a vote? I just hate to exclude him if he was having a technical issue on this forum. All right. I'm going to ask for a quick vote on whether or not to let John Pincus speak, if we may. Sandra, no?
No.
Correct, since you object. George?
No.
Paxton?
Yes.
AJ?
No.
Lisa?
Yes.
John Steinhardt?
No.
Okay. Sue?
Yes.
Tom Horn?
Yes.
John Alexander?
Yes.
Teresa Vaughn?
Yes.
Arna?
Yes.
Kevin Levy?
Yes.
I believe that passes 8-4 with John Steinhardt, AJ, George, and Sandra voting no. And with that, you've got a turn, John Pincus. We'll go back to board discussion.
Thank you. To make it quick, what John Alexander said is what I would say. I support all of the board getting all the information. That's what they get elected to do. And the best way to have transparency is to have processes that ensure it. Every process decision sets a precedent. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And with that, we're returning to board discussion. And we are going to be clear that the Teresa's amendment, change to the amendment, is what is on the floor. And John, you were actually on the original amendment. So I was going to offer you the next opportunity to speak. I see you raised your hand again, but.
Yeah, I got completely confused.
No, John Steinhardt. You raised your hand before. John Steinhardt raised his hand twice. John, it's your turn.
Call the question.
The question has been called for.
I really object.
This is, there's,
Don't we have to make a motion to call the question and then vote?
the question has been called for. We have to take a second. If there is a second, there is no discussion. Is there a second to go to a vote? Last call. Is there a second to calling the question? Seeing none, Paxton, you're next up.
This process is really kind of off. I got in trouble once for doing this exact same thing, substituting another motion for a motion that AJ made. And it really changed the context. And I shouldn't have done it then. I don't think we should do this now. I think what we should have done, as followed process, is vote on the amendment. And in my opinion, it would probably go down. That's okay. I would like to then take open to another amendment would be the appropriate way of doing it.
That is a path to go, but we do have an amendment on the floor.
Which is why I object.
Okay. Do you want to speak to the motion on the floor? Return to the original language and ensure that all the information is forwarded.
I think it's bad process to do it this way, and I will vote against it.
Thank you. AJ.
All right. So the part that I don't understand about this one that we're on right now is that it states that the 3 board members will review the information and then send it to the whole board to review. It seems like adding work to, like, it seems like that's a process doesn't really make sense. Is to either the whole board is going to review everything or a subsection of the board is going to review it, but it doesn't make sense to have both groups review it in the same way. I must be missing something.
So I'm gonna clarify the motion on the floor, which is to replace Lisa's motion, specifically has the original language and says all the letters of intent will be forwarded to the entire board. They, referring to the original 3 people, will then forward the complete list. So the vetting will be basically an additional report provided to the board by these 3, a vetting report, but all the original letters of intent will be provided to the entire board. That's what this is.
Yeah, and I understand that, but how it's set up is the thing I'm trying to figure out is how it's set up. Either you're asking 3 of the board members to review and then send it to the rest of the board to review, which is a double review, or you're asking 3 board members to review it and then the rest of the board to check on those 3 board members to make sure they reviewed it all the way they want it. It really just sets up. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, so I'm trying to clarify. Not.
Yeah, I can't vote for it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think another way of, just to try and make this motion clear, another way to view this is forwarding the original material to everyone who's going to be making a vote on the motion, along with the recommendations of the 3 people who are charged with vetting. Arna.
So I understand what AJ is saying, and what I would prefer the language of this to be is that everything gets sent to the board at the same time. That after there's the vetting and the recommendations, that along with the vetting and the list of applicants, we also send all the letters of intent. So as the board is reviewing the recommendations, they can also see all the letters of intent. I think sending those earlier before the recommendations, to me, doesn't quite make sense, because I would like the board to just see the recommendations first And then they can see all the letters of intent. I have no interest in hiding anything from the board, or from the membership or anything. So, but I think, they're sending the letters of intent first could skew the process. And I'm not particularly happy with how that might play out. But I definitely think the board should have all of it. But I'd like it all to go at once. And the way this motion is worded, that's not how it's worded.
So, so if I might help here, Arna, for a moment, Teresa's language, as I am looking at it, is not specific on when the letters will be forwarded to the board. So is Arna's comments in keeping with your intent, Teresa? That would be to provide all of it at the same time.
I would see no, I don't know how this works, I'm sorry, but if there's a friendly amendment to just change the words to this, so it says they will then forward all the letters of intent and the complete list, then I intended what this says right now in the chat. I wasn't intending to add a complex process. I was just trying to honor a really important thing brought up by LT and Lisa and a few other people, that we need more transparency. So that point of process isn't critical to me. So I don't know if I've answered your question.
Right. You see what I'm concerned about is that it says that all letters of intent will be forwarded to the entire board. They will then forward the complete list of applicants. It's not like as one group that we're forwarding all the information. If we take out, if we change the then to also, that works for me. We're just doing it all together, and there's not a timeline.
A point of process, we have a motion that's been seconded on the table. So.
Yes. So because the language is not explicit, I am trying to determine if what Arna is asking for is in keeping with what Teresa moved. And so if you just give me a moment here, Teresa, the effect would be to say that they will forward the complete list of applicants identifying those meeting requirements with their recommendation to the work group, along with all of the original letters of intent, meaning that it would all go as a single package. Is that a friendly amendment that you can accept?
Yes.
And who seconded this amendment? That was Kevin Levy? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so I would say that because the original motion is not explicit, that is a valid friendly amendment, and the motion is essentially saying all of the information will be forwarded at a single time. The next person up is Sandra. I see Paxton and AJ raising their hands.
Well,
Or maybe I'm lost.
Tom Horn's on there. He hasn't spoken yet. And that's what I was.
I'm sorry, the list is moving fast and furious. Tom Horn, go ahead if you haven't spoken yet.
Oh, thank you. I wanted to honor something that Teresa had said earlier, which is just building a culture of trust and really, continuing to move toward becoming a healthy board. And any motion that comes on the docket for us to look at, I think, it should be open to lots of constructive thinking and the ability for each person to vote their conscience and to be the board member that they need to be. And I want to honor that in my own actions. I'm oftentimes pretty quiet and watching, but I do my homework. I do sort of look for things in the motions that resonate with me. And I think it's important that we each are able to vote our conscience and to be independent in our thinking. And I just want to, that's how we move toward becoming trusting board members with one another. And I really, something you said, Teresa, really resonated with me. And I want to honor that.
Thank you, Tom Horn. I'm going to Sandra. I'm going to remind us all that we are speaking to the amendment, which says that basically still there will be a 3-person vetting group, which will forward all the original material as well as their recommendations at one time. Sandra.
I got a point of order.
What's that?
I'm a little confused. So did Lisa's original amendment?
Lisa's original amendment is being amended. We are talking about the language that Teresa put out to replace the amendment.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Sandra.
Yeah, I like the new wording. I think it makes it very clear that it all goes as a package, and I think that that makes a lot of sense. So it's good for me.
Thank you. Kevin Levy. You're muted. You're passing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, John Steinhardt.
I can support this amendment. I would really like to get to the point where we can get through this amendment and the motion tonight. This work is overdue, and I don't want perfection to be the enemy of good here and keep it from happening. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Teresa Vaughn. You're muted.
I already spoke.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other board discussion on the amendment to the amendment? Last call. Lisa.
I really just want to thank Teresa for being willing to try to broker something acceptable to most of the board. I just really object to this process. I feel as though the original amendment should have been voted on first.
Okay. Last call for board discussion. Seeing none, we are voting on whether or not to replace Lisa's motion involving the entire board with the language that Teresa's put forward, which has a vetting process by 3 specified people, followed by the entire package being forwarded to the entire board. We're going to do this by a voice vote. And Kevin.
Yes.
Arna.
Yes.
Teresa.
Yes.
John Alexander.
No.
Thomas Horn.
Yes.
Sue.
Yes.
John Steinhardt.
Yes.
Lisa.
Can you come back to me, please?
Sure. AJ.
No. I mean, yes.
Okay. I'm going to just one really quick. We are voting on Teresa's change to Lisa's amendment. Since you said yes, no, I want to be sure we know what we're voting on.
Yeah, it would be, sorry, it would be nice to, I'll be honest with you, I'm confused about the language now.
We are voting.
I'm trusting my board members that are voting yes, that it's language, but like, what version are we voting
We're
on
voting
right
on the
now?
language that is in chat right now at the bottom from Teresa, to replace Lisa's Parker's amendment with this language, which has the same president, vice president, and prior president vetting the information and then submitting all of it, including the letters of intent, to the entire board after the vetting.
Okay. So, yeah.
Yes. Paxton.
Bad process. No.
George.
Yes.
Sandra.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes with Paxton. Oh, sorry, I have to come back to Lisa. I have to come back to Lisa. Yeah, sorry. Messing with my order.
Now that it's explicit that all the directors will get access to all the information, I can vote yes.
Thank you very much. So the motion passes with Paxton and John Alexander voting no, everyone else voting yes. We are now on the amendment to the motion, whether or not to change the main motion with Teresa's language. So any discussion should be directed to whether or not we should stay with the original motion or use Teresa's language specifically. Is there any member input on that? This has been pretty well vetted, so I'm going to move along pretty quickly. I see no member input. Is there any further board discussion on this amendment? John Alexander.
I'd like to ask Lisa if the intent of her original motion is captured within this motion now.
Lisa, would you like to speak
Or
and
enough of
respond?
it.
There's no stack.
Mostly, I had hoped that we could open up the process to any director who wants to be that deeply involved. I imagine that all 12 will not want to be that deeply involved. However, knowing that all directors will be supplied with all the information, that's good enough, I think.
Thank you.
Can I ask an additional question?
Good. Go ahead.
Would all directors be privy to the discussions that the ad hoc, whatever, 3-person committee would have when they were vetting?
So I could say that's the motion is as the motion reads right now. So that isn't, I mean, you know, emails, verbal conversations, you'll get their report. You know, that there isn't anything here to say that. Any further board discussion?
Question? What are we voting on?
We are voting on the language that is the current amendment, which is Teresa Vaughn's language, whether or not to modify the original motion to say that all members of the board will receive all of the letters of intent along with the vetting group's report.
Isn't that what we just voted on?
You just voted, yes, that's why we don't need to discuss it very extensively, I hope, but it was to change the amendment to this. Now this is the language and we're deciding whether or not to put it in the motion. The first step was what was the change going to be? We've decided what the change is going to be. Now the next step is whether or not to put it in the motion.
It seems to me to be an extra step. Go ahead.
Okay. Last call for board discussion. Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. This is a vote on whether or not to change the original language of the motion to read so that the appropriate paragraph is replaced with Teresa's language, requiring that all of the letters of intent are provided to everyone on the board. And Sandra.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Paxton.
Yes.
AJ.
Yes.
Lisa.
Yes.
John Steinhardt.
Yes.
Sue.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
John Alexander.
Yes.
Teresa Vaughn.
Yes.
Arna.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. And with that, we are back to the original motion, and we are in board discussion on the original motion. Is there any further discussion on the original motion as amended? John Alexander.
Yeah, thank you. I'm generally in support of this motion. I'm excited to see us moving on it. I'm concerned about the feeling of rush because my experience in this field is that rushing is what gets you into trouble. But in general, I think that this looks good. I really appreciate the discussion that the board did have around this and the collaborative rewriting and compromise. Teresa and John and others worked on it. I still feel a little bit conflicted about this, though, because most of the discussions that we've had on this have been done in isolation, and the majority of our discussions happened in closed meetings. And even just a little bit of member input kind of threw us off tonight about this. And so I would have preferred some more member input. But so I think, but in good faith, what my hope is that if this committee moves on, it will not only be open to the public, but it'll be open to a lot of public comment. So we can make sure we really take our time and do this work in a way that as many perspectives can be included in this. And with that said, the other thing I'm concerned about is I think the order of our operations are a little out of order. I think that we as a board and an organization and as some committees need to do some work in acknowledging our lessons learned with regards to the challenges we faced in the past. And I wanted to propose that and was not able to propose that. And so we've moved forward with this without any of that work and discussion. So I'm hoping that in our diversity workshops that we're going to have, maybe we can spend a little bit of time doing that. So I'm not going to get into the details on all of that, but I think that opinions are important. And it's not just all about objectivity, it's all about what we've learned in the past. And so if we're going to sometimes be allowed to provide opinions and other times not be allowed to provide opinions, then that's a little bit challenging. And that's kind of what I...
Point of order.
Yeah.
Point of order.
Neil, what's your point of order?
My point of order is that you cut me off when I was making similar comments earlier. And you told me to stick to the motion at hand.
Yeah.
And
So-
I'm not seeing that same thing being done in this circumstance.
Okay, so in this circumstance, I'm not hearing an attribution of motives to other individuals necessarily, but I will ask John Alexander that, we can focus on the motion on the floor.
So the motion
A lot of
is-
people are spending a lot of time talking about the process, and that's part of what makes the process take longer. So I'd ask that we focus on the motion if we can.
Well, I'm working on trying to... Jeez.
Sorry.
Yeah. I also think that we should consider an amendment to, actually, I would like an amendment to suggest that the committee involved in selecting the members of in reviewing, I would like an amendment that the committee the board committee who will be reviewing and reviewing applications and recommending the task force members to the board be opened up to other board members.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Lisa Parker? Okay, so it's moved by John Alexander. I would like some specific language to change the language in the motion if possible. Maybe something along the lines of the board shall select X number of people or something like that. But the motion on the floor is to open up what currently reads, correct me if I'm wrong, what currently reads the president, the vice president, and immediate prior president to a process by which the board will select, is this correct, the individuals that will handle the vetting?
Yeah, maybe you can all we need to do is it will be those people and other volunteer board members.
And other volunteer board members. So
Sure, I'm trying to
potentially more. So basically, any board member who wishes to participate will be allowed to participate. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, and any other board members volunteering for this work will handle the call out? How's that? Is that acceptable for language? John?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. And is that acceptable to you, Lisa? The president, the vice president, immediate prior president, and any other board members willing to volunteer for this work will handle the call out for, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, that is the motion on the floor. Any member input on that motion? Heather Kent.
Hey, everybody. So I just want to make sure that all you board members know that once again, it is super clear that all this discussion that's happening in public is based on, as someone already referenced, a whole ton of discussion, or maybe not even discussion, that's been going on in the background among you, and that you're all freaked out about the people who are going to apply to be on this, whatever it's called. I mean, it's so frustrating to have you come and just dance around all this stuff like this. It's very clear there's one group that wants a bunch of people who were probably on the diversity committee, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you may as well just speak plainly in front of all of us, to all of us. Thanks.
Any other member input on this motion? this amendment? Last call? Seeing none, we're going to go back to board discussion, and I'm going to go first to people who were speaking to the prior motion. You can speak now, or you can hold it till we resolve the amendment. Teresa, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Well, I will say that I feel like getting all of the information to the entire board addresses the concerns that would be met by adding more people to the call out process. I'm concerned about whether or not that's going to make things slow down. And my main concern is that we start doing this work. And I don't know all the personalities involved, and I've got a dog running around right now. I'm sorry, but I don't really support the amendment because I feel like it's going to slow things down, and I want to get to the work because I care, and I know we all care about the work of equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And I want to get to the work.
Thank you. John Steinhardt, do you want to speak to the amendment?
Yeah, I think speaking to the amendment will cover what I was going to say to the motion, which is I don't want to slow this process down anymore. It's been 16 years since we did a baby step in policy. If this work is important, we need to do something as opposed to just stalling it forever. We'll point out that the language of the motion was carefully written to make sure that the committee included processes to allow non-members to be heard and participate. So I'm opposed to this amendment. I'd like to get the motion passed so we can get some work done. Thanks.
Thank you. Lisa Parker, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Yes, I would like to speak to the amendment. I think that I support this amendment, and I guess I'm a little puzzled that if whatever board members wish to be involved will be allowed to do that, then I don't see an issue with making that language explicit in the motion. I don't understand that objection. As far as slowing things down, I think that if a director is really interested in the work and they're pulling their weight in this committee, it shouldn't slow things down, because you would have people that are voluntarily there because they want to be and they want to do the work, which is a lot different than just trying to herd cats and expect everybody to show up and contribute fully. So I don't have an issue with it. I support it. I think we should just go ahead and do it.
Paxton. Thank you, Lisa.
We're still speaking on the amendment.
We're speaking on the amendment that will let any other board members volunteer to participate in the vetting process.
I think it's worthwhile to open it to any board member that's really that concerned. Thank you. I support the amendment.
Thank you. AJ.
Yeah. I think I don't need to say what's obvious. And I think the obvious thing is playing out. We've seen this play out for the last 3 years in weird ways. We're creating issues that we don't need to create. This is why I'm excited about the training with Cliff Jones to help us get through some of this stuff so that our membership is watching us in my opinion, do this over something petty and we're not really getting to the issue. That this work is being not only prohibited by, folks who were assigned to do this kind of work in the past, but now the board is like, we're really just like picking little things to just get in our own way. We're tripping over our own feet. And it's so obvious, and anybody watching can see it. And I wish that we could just stop doing it. But one of the things.
Can we? Yeah. So please.
Anything to do with the amendment?
Getting interrupted by the same person every time I speak, right?
So I appreciate that, AJ.
What you're saying.
I hold on, please. Stop. So AJ, I appreciate what you're saying. If you could try and be concise about that and focus on the merits of adding more members or not to the vetting process. That is the motion on the floor.
So what you're saying to me is that I need to only.
I'm trying to say it to everyone as best I can.
I can't have a narrative or express myself like others, is what you're saying.
No. And you have spoken quite a bit. I'm asking everyone to try and speak to the merits of the issues on the floor and to depersonalize as much as
what
possible.
I'm trying to say is there's no merit to it, Stephen.
That's value to say. Yeah, that's valuable to say.
And that and I mean, never mind. It's clear to me that like this is just an exercise that folks are whatever. It's so frustrating that other people get to talk and express themselves, and for whatever reason, and then there's a wonder why I get frustrated.
So,
and there's a wonder, but like I get cut off in the middle of my points, and then I get chastised to stay on key when you just allowed 5 minutes ago John Alexander to go off.
Oh,
I am frustrated, and I hope that you can have equity in this process.
I am doing my very best, and I'm trying to keep the tenor of language about motives that ascribes motives and behaviors to people to a minimum. And I do think that there is a distinction in the actual words used, and I'm doing my very best, AJ, and I'm not trying to stop you from speaking. And I do appreciate what you've said about your concerns about this, and I'm just asking to turn from those concerns towards the merits of the actual words on the motion, because
all I'm saying, Stephen, is there are motives in the continued amendments to this motion. There are, and that's
understood.
So those are motives as well.
Yeah, understood. Do you believe that there are motives, the ulterior motives to the purpose of these amendments? Is there anything else you'd like to say specific to the motion? Sandra.
Yes, I think that this amendment is a minor variation of the last amendment that was replaced and we've already basically voted on this once. And we passed an amendment by, Mark, and I support the original motion. I don't support the amendment. I think it's better processed the way it's originally written. And so I won't be voting for this one.
Thank you. Arna.
I can't support this amendment. I think the process that we already have and the amendment that we have passed are good. And I would like to remind the board and everyone else that the board has a chance to see all of the information. They will have a chance to reject the recommendations from this group. They don't have to accept them, and they will have plenty of time. All that information will go to the complete board, well before they have to vote on the recommendations. So they'll have time to go through all that. And if they don't like the recommendations, then they'll vote against them. But I don't want to do anything that will slow this whole process down. And I think having too many people will slow it down. So I'm not in favor of this amendment.
Okay, thank you. And do you want to speak again, Sandra? Is that what? Or John, I have John Alexander, and then did you raise your hand again, Sandra? I'll come back to you if you did.
I'll be clear about what my motive is. My motive is to be inclusive of the elected board members in the process of doing this. And therefore as inclusive of the membership that vote in this organization, and opportunities for members to reach out to people who are interested in this. And that is my motive in making this happen. A little bit slower and doing it right in a risk-averse way is an okay thing to do in this business. Yes, it's taken a long time, but we can make progress.
Thank you. Sandra.
I'd like to call the question.
Okay. There is no one else currently on the stack. Is there any board member that still wishes to speak? If not, we will just proceed to a vote. Is there any board member who wishes to speak still? Seeing none, we're just going to proceed to a vote on the amendment. And I'm going to go from the top. Sandra.
Yes. Oh, no.
So we are voting on the amendment to allow other board members to participate.
I'm a no.
Oh, come on, Sandra.
Nope, sorry,
said
John.
yes.
No, it's no.
George. George, you're muted.
I'm sorry, no.
No. Okay, Paxton.
Yes.
AJ.
No.
Lisa.
Yes.
John Steinhardt.
No.
Sue.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
John Alexander.
Yes.
Teresa Vaughn.
No.
Arna.
No.
Kevin.
No.
The motion fails with Sandra, George, AJ, John Steinhardt, Teresa Vaughn, Arna, and Kevin all voting no. So we are back to the main motion as amended. John Steinhardt.
Call the question.
Is there any board member who wishes to speak to the main motion still? If not, we will proceed to a vote. Last call for any board member who wishes to speak to the main motion. Okay, seeing none, we'll just go straight to a vote on the main motion. And start with John Steinhardt.
Yes.
Sue.
No.
Thomas.
Yes.
John Alexander. This is the main motion as amended. John Alexander?
Sorry, I lost my buttons. I'm going to abstain.
Teresa Vaughn.
Yes.
Arna.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
Lisa.
Yes.
AJ.
Yes.
Paxton.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Sandra.
Yes.
Motion passes with Sue voting no and John Alexander abstaining. And that concludes this motion. we're on to the motion on board liaisons committee attendance. Arna Shaw and Sandra Bauer, who wants to make this motion?
I can do this.
Are you making the motion?
Yes.
Okay, and is there a second? Seconded by Sandra. Moved by Arna and seconded by Sandra. Do you want to briefly introduce the motion?
It's a short motion. I'm just going to read it. The board moves that liaisons are expected to attend committee meetings. If, in the rare instance that a liaison or the liaisons cannot make a committee meeting, they should request another board member to attend that meeting in their place. If no board members can go to the meeting may continue and the liaisons should review the recording. This applies to all committees unless the board has previously made or subsequently makes different arrangements for a specific committee.
Is there any member input on this motion? Last call for member input on this motion. We're waiting a little bit. Any members wish to speak? Spirit.
Can you clarify, is this both liaisons or just the one board liaison that
May
has
I
to
ask?
attend?
May I answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just one board liaison has to attend. Most committees do have two, but we just want to make sure that one gets there. And can I also just say, because I didn't give any clarifying thing, this has come from the committee best practices work group. They are presenting this motion.
Thank you, and thank you for all the work y'all are doing.
Thank you, Spirit. Going to John Pincus.
Yes, I strongly support this motion, and I hope you pass it. Thanks.
Grumpy.
Can I assume you're talking about board liaisons? Because we have very different liaisons. We have budget liaisons and bum liaisons. So maybe you can amend this to say board liaisons, please.
Yeah, yes, we are speaking of board liaisons, and we can amend it to add that.
So it doesn't change the original meaning, but I would like the language. Are we saying board committee liaisons are expected to attend committee meetings? Would that be satisfactory?
No, the language should say that moves that board liaisons are expected to attend committee meeting.
Okay, or just board liaisons, not board committee liaisons. Okay.
Yeah.
Board liaisons. Is that fine, Sandra?
Yes.
Okay. Any further member input? Seeing none, we'll go to board discussion. Is there any board discussion? I saw Arna. Did you raise your hand?
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to say that we're bringing the committees, we brought forth this motion as a way to clarify the roles of liaisons and, further clarifying that, because that's kind of what we do, is help clarify these issues. Because there was some confusion, and we wanted to make sure that committee meetings could always go on, even if for some reason neither liaison could be there, and that what the process would be if that happened, because we didn't want committees to have to cancel their meetings. So anyway, so that's why we have brought this motion to the board.
Thank you very much. I want to be mindful of time. We may have to extend the meeting. Next person up is Lisa.
Yes, I support this because I think that if you are the board liaison to a committee, you should make every effort to attend every committee meeting. And if for some reason you can't, making arrangements seems appropriate. And I also think that committees should be able to meet even if their liaisons are unable to attend. So I think this is good. I just have one clarifying question. You said that this would apply unless the board makes other arrangements subsequently. So this wouldn't be retroactive. This would be going forward for all committees.
This would be going forward for all committees, but I also said the motion says that if the board has previously made or subsequently makes different arrangements for a committee.
Okay, thank you.
Sandra.
Yeah, I think this is a practical solution to some of the issues that we've had in providing board liaisons, because everybody has busy lives and sometimes it just falls apart. And committees are doing a lot of work, and if there's any way for them to move forward with having a meeting, then this is that pathway. I think we needed to do some correction to a previous policy that we had passed a couple of years ago, and it just wasn't completely workable. So this is the solution to that.
Thank you. I have John Alexander. I want to remind about time. Everyone has spoken in favor, so we should focus on whether anyone has a problem with it. Go ahead, John.
I'm in favor. Great idea.
Any other board discussion, particularly anybody who has an objection or a problem or a modification of the motion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. No one has spoken against the motion. Is there any objection to adopting this motion as amended? Last call for board members. Is there any objection to adopting this motion as amended? Seeing none, the motion is adopted by unanimous consent. Now we move to new business. Do you want to extend the meeting to provide some introductory time, 2 minutes per motion or something, AJ?
My original motion at the beginning was my original thought was if there were time, I would not like to extend it past 9.
Okay, so all right, so I'm going to move on. I'm just going to read the motions and we'll get down to the meeting evaluation part. New business. Up on new business is make meet committee best practices work group, a committee. Sandra and Arna. Change the method of selecting directors to election by written ballot and clarify the election process. John Alexander, George Braddock, Paxton Hogue, Kevin Levy, Lisa Parker, Sue Theolis, and Teresa Vaughn. Establish a minimum age for OCF membership. John Alexander, George Braddock, Paxton Hogue, Kevin Levy, Lisa Parker, Sue Theolis, and Teresa Vaughn. Clarify the effective beginning of terms of newly elected directors. John Alexander, George Braddock, Paxton Hogue, Kevin Levy, Lisa Parker, Sue Theolis, and Teresa Vaughn. Change the voting participation requirement to count voting in any election versus only the annual election as fulfilling the requirements for membership, I presume, for maintaining membership. John Alexander, George Braddock, Paxton Hogue, Kevin Levy, Lisa Parker, Sue Theolis, and Teresa Vaughn. Change the petition signature requirement from a hard number to a percentage of members voting in the election. John Alexander, George Braddock, Paxton Hogue, Kevin Levy, Lisa Parker, Sue Theolis, and Teresa Vaughn. And now we will move on to meeting evaluation. And we have 6 minutes. Lisa.
Yes, I think this was a great meeting. I think you did a really good job facilitating, Stephen. Thank you. I just want to say that I think that this was a really good example of the board working together and compromising and getting some work done. Yes, it takes longer. Yes, it's challenging, but I don't think that all these conversations should be conversations that we're having behind closed doors. I think that this is the place to be having these discussions. And if, amending motions, that is a normal. That's normal. That's okay. And I'm a little troubled that I sometimes feel a bit stifled from doing that, and that troubles me. But otherwise, I think that we did a really good job working through a very difficult conversation and coming to a compromise. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. John Steinhardt.
I'm happy we actually managed to make it through the business tonight. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to have time to discuss the new business because I'd really like to be doing that. But I think one of the things that we need to work on is that the meeting took this long because we had a lot of speechifying that wasn't actually speaking to the motion on the table. And I really hope in the future we can actually speak to the motions on the table as opposed to whatever we want to talk about, because that sucked up a lot of time tonight and kept us from doing the other thing that we wanted to do. Thanks.
Thank you. And got a lot of people who want to speak to the meeting here. Teresa Vaughn. Mindful of time.
I'm going quick. I agree with Lisa. I think that this issue is something the entire world hasn't come to any agreement on in thousands of years. And we are trying to do something that is just.
Did we lose you? I think we
lost your last word.
Lost your last words, Teresa. We were trying to do something that, and we might have lost Lisa. Teresa, you there?
I am here. Did you not hear
We
me?
lost your last words after trying to do something.
We're trying to do something really hard, and yes, it took a little bit longer, but I think that's okay.
Thank you.
Hey, Stephen, real quick, can you try to pick out membership to go since we're getting short first?
I'll do my best. The list is growing a little fast. John, so Hillary.
Thanks. Stephen, I really appreciate a lot of things about your facilitation, and part of what I appreciate is I think you're getting standardized use for terms. I had never heard the term point of privilege before, and when I looked it up, it had said things, for example, like you would call a point of privilege when the boiler is about to explode. Apparently that's an old classic description, that it was urgent things that were involved the whole membership. I'm not sure it was being used correctly in this instance, and I'd really like us to get that clarified. I share AJ's perception that he was interrupted a lot and that he was policed, maybe he wouldn't use that term, on what he was permitted to say, and that I found that troubling as well. And one more thing, on when new businesses introduced like this, it would have been so much more helpful if the way these were written were things like, instead of like saying clarify the age of membership, the membership, establish the age of voting membership at fill in the blank, say the age, actually give the content and not say what it's about, but say what it is. Thank you.
Do we want to extend the meeting for this portion here, AJ? I mean, we're at 9. And lots of people are signing up.
Just keep going through this.
Okay. Okay, Grumpy. Grumpy. Okay, I'm going to go on to Lawrence Taylor if Grumpy comes back.
Thanks. I'm trying to get the video up. There we go. Okay. I do want to respectfully disagree with Hillary's understanding of point of privilege. I understand it to mean a matter that affects the credibility, reputation, and dignity of a member individually or of the body collectively. It also means the thing that she meant, but the point of privilege was being used, in my opinion, and I think you would agree, having done so, that it had to do with reputational and or dignity issues that were being addressed. I did want to acknowledge and honor AJ for acknowledging his own emotional reactions and addressing those. And I know that's difficult, and it takes some considerable courage anytime any of us, and I'm certainly as prone to it as anyone, feels that kind of an emotional reaction and is able to draw back and look at it. I think that really deserves respect. On the other hand, I do think that one set of rules has to apply to everybody. And if one person is the one violating the rules and they're not being called on it, then they're getting special treatment. There's nothing special about being held to the same standard as everybody else. That's all I got.
Thank you. And we're going to go to John Pincus.
I'm back though. Should I go?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was having trouble finding the buttons. Steve, you did a great job, I thought, in facilitating this meeting. You're a good facilitator. I find you all ought to stop attacking each other. And you all know who is leading those attacks. And I disagree with what Hillary said. I don't respect you all, or some of you, for saying you're not going to attack people, and then you do attack people on the board. So you shouldn't do that, and you should think about that. But great facilitation, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you. And John Pincus.
Thanks. I thought it was that you did a very good job on some tough subjects, Steve. And democracy takes a long time, and it's tough work. And if you try to enclose it from people, it'll just come right back around, and the work will be extended, even though you may think that you're creating efficiencies. And so those efficiencies evaporate when things become non-inclusive. So as I've said before, I would have liked to see the Country Fair be the beacon of open governance. Thank you.
Thank you. Spirit.
Hi, thanks for extending this so we could have an evaluation. I want to say that I came in late. I'm obviously, well, I'm just busy in my life, but I came in a little late, and I just want to give some food for thought. This isn't a slight to any board member, but for about 40 minutes, I learned about the internal struggles of the board more than I did any motion on the table. So that's just food for thought, and it took me a while to catch up. That being said, also, while we're talking about, I'm just going to speak on equity here. When the president speaks, and when I was on the board, when the president speaks, we do give a little bit more time there. The president is voted or appointed into his position or her position for a reason. And so I just want to say that it's important for me to hear what the president has to say. And so I'm just going to leave it at that.
Thank you. So I've got John Alexander and Sue wanting to speak, and I put my own hand on here because I do have something to say. Do you guys want to go first, John and Sue?
Yeah, I'll go real quick. I appreciate AJ's attempt to get our new business into discussion. I really, we went for it, but we had important discussion that preceded that. I'm hoping that we can develop ways to continue to encourage more and more timely input from our members, because I think that that I find it very important, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, John. Sue.
Stephen, I'm really impressed with your facilitation. Thank you. And Tom Horn, I want to publicly thank you for your comment about voting one's conscience. We should never forget that. Thank you. And thanks everybody for being here. Good night.
And Joe, so I want to do a little bit of just feedback on this, and I normally try not to, participate here, especially since I feel like I'm kind of the object of it to some degree. But I will say that there is nothing I would love more than to work on refining the process with the board, and I've made that clear, and I have stuff to provide on it. And there's no way that that's going to happen before fair because I'm way too busy now. So, down the road perhaps, but I would like to see it standardized. And in the meantime, I'm doing my best to be as consistent and fair as possible. And what I would say is that there are a number of times I hear people saying things about how they feel about certain things or suspect about certain things or are concerned about certain things, whether it is process or the motion or the reason for a change, where I would say you shouldn't necessarily not be able to say that, but you should be concise about it because our objective is to speak to the issues in the plain language of the motions. So being concise saying, I'm not comfortable with this. I think that the reason for this change has other reasons and so forth, and then letting it drop, but just move on is better, and speaking directly to the objective, the language of the motions. Also, a lot of talk about process. If there isn't actually a change of process, that confuses process. So we're trying to amend an amendment, which isn't something that should come up very often. I'm doing my very best to keep it clear, and arguments about other things make it harder to keep it clear for everybody. It actually is pretty easy if we just stay focused on what's the question on the floor. That's my experience, and I've been doing it for a long time. So it's what I recommend and ask that you try. I ask that you try to go with me on the process here. And then as far as what is germane in a more formal setting, and if we were refined, there would be more. I'm struggling to find the right amount of how much do I interject or control. But what I am focused on is trying to have very neutral, objective language, not ascribe motives to other people, not use emotive language. Even when you are in great strife, even when you think that people are doing things for bad reasons, sometimes I'm listening to things that are going on long that might feel that way, but a lot of times whether or not I interject has a lot to do with the specific words that are used, because the specific words or naming people, those are the things that create a more emotional reaction and inflame and cause more discord when we're trying to be dispassionate, calm, respectful of each other, and work our way through the issues. So that's my goal. That's what I'm trying to do. And I'm certainly trying to be as even-handed as possible. And I hope by now you felt like I have been as even-handed as possible, because almost everybody at one point or another has been on the receiving end of it. So I'm just doing my best. And that's all I got. Thank you very much. And did you want to say something before President's Piece, AJ?
No, I do not have a president's piece, but I raised my hand for media evaluation. And that is, I would just express to this organization that is struggling with its ability to have a conversation around equity and inclusion, that it is important to recognize that I think this is an emotional conversation, and I know people don't like to talk about it a lot, but the reality of it is that your president is a Black man, and these conversations and how we move forward on this has especially it especially affects me in a way that I think others it doesn't affect others. I become emotional about it because for the last 3 years or more than that, I've experienced this inability for this board and the leadership of this organization to do the work necessary to get us to a point that we all say we want to get to, and that is an anti-racist organization. We're far from that right now. And this discussion tonight was a further reminder of how difficult it is when we don't center the voices of marginalized people in this conversation. It's one thing to say that as a phrase, but it's another thing to actually do it. And I feel in this conversation tonight, we can't even center the voice of your own president, who is a Black man, in the conversation about this. I feel a lot of behind the scenes distrust happening in my leadership. And you saw that tonight, because it's not only happening behind the scenes, but it's bleeding into what our public meeting area. So I know this is a hard conversation and people don't like when I talk about these things. Some people don't like when I talk about things, but this is reality. And so I just want to put it out there that we have to continue to be better. And I would like someday to be able to come to a meeting like this and have a discussion a hard discussion around equity and inclusion, and feel like people respect my voice, not just the membership, but the board members who I serve with respect and honor my lived experience and my experience as an activist in this community for over 20 years.
Thank you. And with that, I believe we are done with the meeting evaluation. I see no more hands in stack. Next board meeting is Monday, June 3rd, 2024 at 7 p.m. via Zoom. The Junely board meeting is Sunday, June 30th, 2024, 4 to 6 p.m. at Alice's Fire Pit in person. And you are foregoing the president's speech. Is that correct, AJ?
Correct. Have a good night.
So with that, this meeting is adjourned.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Night.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Night, everybody.
Thank you.